They were the fire and gasoline of the 1960s, loud, untamed, and destined to explode. Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison weren't just rock icons, they were two of the most electrifying, unpredictable forces to ever hit the stage. But behind the scenes, their encounter wasn't some wild backstage story or playful clash of egos. It was something far more disturbing. She didn't just dislike Jim Morrison, she hated him. And once you understand what really happened between them, you'll never hear their music the same way again. Because one night, one violent, humiliating moment changed everything. And for Janis Joplin, it drew a line in blood, a line she never uncrossed, and a silence she never needed to break, because her fury said it all. Janis's wounds ran deep. Before she was a legend, Janis Joplin was just a girl from Port Arthur, Texas, a place that seemed determined to crush her spirit from the very start. In that conservative town, difference wasn't just frowned upon, it was punished. Janis wasn't interested in fitting in. While her classmates danced to pop hits and wore pearls, she was diving into the music of Bessie Smith, Lead Belly, and Ma Rainey, black blues artists whose voices cried out with pain and truth. That music spoke to something inside her, something raw that she couldn't name yet. But her uniqueness made her a target. She was mocked for her acne, her weight, her thrift store clothes. It wasn't innocent teasing, it was brutal, personal, and relentless, the kind of bullying that didn't just sting, it left scars. And Janis didn't back down. She dared to speak her mind, even openly supporting racial integration in a town where that was seen as a betrayal. That kind of courage made her dangerous in the eyes of her peers, and isolated in every way that mattered. She hoped college might offer an escape. First at Lamar State, then the University of Texas at Austin, Janis tried to find a place that would embrace her for who she really was. But Austin had its own cruelty. She performed barefoot in coffee houses, singing her heart out with an auto harp in her lap and defiance in her voice. Still, it wasn't enough to shield her from humiliation. One fraternity even voted her ugliest man on campus, not just a joke, but a message, you're not welcome here either. That moment could have broken anyone. But for Janis, it lit a fire. Every insult, every rejection got poured back into her music. She didn't just sing, she wailed, screamed, trembled. Her voice became a weapon forged from pain. She didn't aim for perfection, she aimed for truth. And when she sang, it was impossible not to listen. But as that pain hardened into performance, Janis also found something else to help her cope, something that felt like comfort but would eventually become a curse, the bottle. That became her armor. Before the punchlines, before the rumors, there was the bottle. Not just any bottle, but Southern Comfort, which to Janis Joplin became more than a drink, it was a shield, a ritual, a lifeline. On stage, she gripped it like a second microphone. Off stage, it was never far from reach. Whether she was headlining Woodstock or jamming in a tiny club, that bottle was there, burning in her hand, steadying her voice, numbing the nerves she never let the crowd see. And it wasn't just for show. She drank it hard, with the same unapologetic force that powered her voice. What most fans didn't realize was that Southern Comfort wasn't technically even whiskey, it was a sweet, flavored lure, misunderstood just like Janis. And yet, it fused with her identity. The company even sent her a full-length Lynx fur coat and matching hat as a thank you, no paycheck, no endorsement deal, just recognition that she had made their brand iconic without ever trying. But the bottle was more than a prop, it was a crutch, a sedative for the loneliness, a disguise for the doubt, and a poison she couldn't put down. Southern Comfort gave her fire, but it also chipped away at everything she was trying to hold together. And as her fame grew, so did the cracks it was barely covering. Because when the spotlight faded and the crowd went quiet, what Janis wanted most wasn't more applause, it was love. And that's where the pain hit even harder. She wanted love, got left behind. For all her fire and bravado, Janis Joplin wasn't chasing fame, she was chasing connection. And off stage, the woman who sang like a storm was quietly aching for something far more delicate, real love. But love didn't come easily. Her relationships burned fast and burned out faster. She poured herself into each one with the same intensity she brought to her music, but more often than not, she was left with silence and disappointment. Some partners admired her brilliance but couldn't handle the chaos. Others were dazzled by her fame, not her heart. And time after time, she was the one left standing alone. One of the most haunting examples came in 1968 at New York's Chelsea Hotel. Janis had a fleeting encounter with Leonard Cohen, a night he later reduced to a footnote in a song, Chelsea Hotel No. 2. For him, it was a passing moment. For Janis, it left a bruise. She may have gone there looking for Chris Christopherson, but she settled for a memory that clung to her far longer than anyone realized. Her heartbreak bled into her songs, Piece of My Heart, Cry Baby, Maybe, each one a confession wrapped in distortion. She didn't write love songs, she wrote survival songs. And every lyric was a testament to how deeply she felt, how badly she wanted to be chosen. But love kept slipping through her fingers. And that same yearning, soaked in heartbreak, was about to collide with someone who would take her pain even further, a man who didn't just reject her, but tried to control her. When Morrison's myth cracked open, Jim Morrison wasn't just a rock star. He was a myth, the Lizard King, the tortured poet, the seductive rebel who lived on the edge and made chaos look like art. But behind the leather pants and stage poetry was something far more disturbing, and the people closest to him knew it. In recent years, that myth has begun to collapse. In the 2025 docuseries Before the End, Searching for Jim Morrison, voices from Morrison's inner circle spoke out, shattering decades of silence. Among them was Judy Houston, a former girlfriend who alleged that Morrison not only manipulated her emotionally but crossed a physical line in terrifying ways. She described one night in chilling detail, his eyes dark with fury, his grip tight on her arms, and her voice going unheard. "He just went psycho," she said. And she wasn't the only one. Pamela Despar recalled being slapped by Morrison for no reason at all. Doors drummer John Densmore admitted to witnessing Morrison threaten a woman with a knife. What fans once laughed off as rock and roll excess now reads like a pattern of violent control. It was power disguised as poetry, and the women in his orbit were often the ones who paid the price. And as these stories resurface, one thing becomes disturbingly clear: Janis Joplin didn't just clash with Jim Morrison because of ego, she saw the danger in him and refused to be another casualty. What happened when they finally met would make that danger impossible to ignore, the party that changed everything. It was supposed to be magic, a meeting of two rock royalty figures, Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison, carefully orchestrated by producer Paul Rothchild. He thought it would be iconic, electric, maybe even romantic. So he threw a party in Hidden Hills just outside Los Angeles and invited them both. It was the kind of gathering where legends were made or destroyed. At first, things looked promising. Janis arrived in good spirits. Morrison was surprisingly sober, and they immediately connected. He called her remarkable. She was intrigued by his swagger. For a brief moment, it looked like Rothschild's gamble had worked. But then the drinks started flowing. Jim had a reputation for going from charismatic to confrontational with just a few swigs, and that night he didn't disappoint. As the party wore on, he morphed into his worst self, slurring, stumbling, loud. Rothschild later described it bluntly: Morrison went from artist to cretin. Janis, though known for her own wild energy, wasn't like that. Her intoxication was warm, inviting. His was predatory. When she tried to pull away, Jim followed. What started as flirtation spiraled into something darker, something dangerous. And just when Janis thought she could escape, Morrison made a move that would leave him bleeding on the ground and her legacy forever changed. The night she fought back. It happened fast, but Janis would remember it for the rest of her life. As the party unraveled and Morrison's behavior worsened, Janis decided she'd had enough. She headed toward her band's station wagon, her sanctuary on wheels, ready to disappear into the night. But Jim wasn't done. Slurring, swaying, and emboldened by liquor, he followed her to the car. And then, in one sudden violent lurch, he grabbed a fistful of her hair and yanked. That was the moment everything snapped. Without hesitation, Janis reached for the closest thing in reach, a full bottle of Southern Comfort, her trademark, her armor. She swung. The glass shattered against Morrison's head, sending him crashing to the ground, dazed, bleeding, and humiliated. For Janis, it wasn't just self-defense, it was a declaration. A woman who'd been bullied, belittled, and overlooked her entire life wasn't going to be another victim. Not now. Not ever. She climbed into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and drove off. She didn't look back. But Morrison did. According to Paul Rothschild, Jim showed up the next day still asking for Janis's number, oblivious to the damage he had caused. To him, it was just another wild night. To Janis, it was a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And that wasn't the last time they clashed. Because soon after, it happened again, this time, in front of a crowd. Why she never forgave him. Some stories end in silence. This one exploded, twice. Not long after the Hidden Hills incident, Janis and Jim crossed paths again. This time, it was at The Scene, a pulsing nightclub in Manhattan where rock's wildest icons collided. Jimi Hendrix was performing. Morrison was drunk. And Janis was there, watching, wary. According to those who witnessed it, Morrison couldn't help himself. He stormed the stage during Hendrix's set, acting out, drawing attention, as if chaos was his currency. Janis, disgusted, didn't hold back. She grabbed her drink and hurled it at him. Then, as if that wasn't enough, she allegedly hit him again, this time with another bottle. The three of them, Joplin, Morrison, and Hendrix, ended up tangled on the club floor in a chaotic blur of glass, sweat, and shattered egos. It was surreal, a fever dream. But for Janis, it was personal. She didn't just hate Morrison for what he did to her. She hated what he represented, the drunken genius who could get away with anything. The man who was glorified for being dangerous while women like her were torn apart for being difficult. Morrison was celebrated for his destruction. Janis was punished for her survival. From that point on, she wanted nothing to do with him, no collaborations, no friendly hellos, not even a mention in interviews. But even as she distanced herself, the music world kept linking them together, two icons of rebellion, tragedy, and excess. Only one of them ever got to rewrite the story. And that final word. Janis never said it aloud. But she left it in every song, her roar versus his legend. Janis Joplin never got to be the misunderstood genius. Jim Morrison did. His rage became mystique. He could be reckless and cruel, but the world called it brilliance. Janis, she was called unstable, too loud, too much. And that's why she never forgave him. After that violent night, she made it clear she wanted nothing to do with Morrison. She didn't rant or drag him in public. She just walked away, quietly, permanently. Because for Janis, it wasn't just about one man. It was about everything he symbolized, a world that praised broken men but punished broken women. Morrison's chaos earned awe. Janis's pain earned judgment. But she didn't let it define her. She used her final months to lift others. She helped fund a headstone for Bessie Smith, the blues icon buried without one. She gave voice to the forgotten. That was Janis's power, not revenge, but legacy. Morrison left behind legends. Janis left behind truth. Truth in her music. Truth in her rage. Truth in every scream. She didn't get the fairy tale ending. But she got the last word. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe for more untold music history, and drop a comment below. Was Janis right to cut Morrison off forever, or was she exposing a system that never protected women like her?